my miracles, how are you doing today? It is another random video, and by the title, yes, I was married at one point in my life, and I've been wanting to share this with you for quite a long time, my story. I think because maybe someone could benefit out of what I have been through. I was married on May 24th, 2003. It seems like forever ago. My ex-husband and I were dating a little bit over a year before we got married. I met him at my coffee shop that I owned in my hometown, and I think our first date was a movie and dinner. You know, your typical. It wasn't romantic at the time. I thought it was, but looking back, he wasn't very romantic. He did pay me a lot of attention. He was very touchy-feely, opened the doors for me. But it wasn't, you know, your big fireworks fairy tale thing. And a lot of women, even now, think that there is a prince out there that's going to come and woo them and be romantic. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. So as we were continuing dating, let me tell you this. He was my first kiss. He was my first everything. I was raised to save myself for marriage. So, and that's what I did. I fell head over heels for Ethan. That was his name. And he fell in love with me, and we began to talk about marriage. When it came to the part of us saying, yes, I do want to marry you, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, we went at it a very, I guess, a different way at that time. We went to I think it was a Kay's merchandise, and we actually picked out our own wedding rings. So I told him what I wanted. He told me what he wanted, and I decided that I wanted to pay for his ring, so I started making payments, and he in turn made payments. It's so unromantic. Oh, unromantic. We had went out to Applebee's. We had a thing about Applebee's back then. And he seemed very nervous. I didn't take the hint of why he was so nervous. At that time, I had to close the coffee shop and move back home for a brief period of time. So he drove me back to my parents' home, and my parents weren't home. We were gonna watch a movie, and then he was gonna go back to his place. And after I changed into my PJs, I went out to the kitchen to take my contacts out. I had just taken my contacts out when I turned to the side, and he was on his knees. He had the ring, and he said, "Would you do me the honor of being my wife?" Or something to that effect. I was excited, but in the back of my mind, I wanted it to be so much more romantic. As a woman, you want to be swept off your feet. You want the man to think of something clever or loving to go along with the proposal. And that didn't happen. Of course, I said yes. And really looking back on the planning of my wedding and how my wedding came about, it wasn't romantic. And thinking about it now, it makes me very sad. Yeah. The first 2 to 3 years was really good. We grew to know each other more. My love grew and grew for him. We decided not to have children. And another red flag was, he put that decision on me. He had a child from his previous relationship that he really never talked to, and eventually signed over his rights. And growing up, I really never had the mothering instinct. I really never wanted children. So we made the decision to be a couple without children. I worked, he worked. And within the mid-third year of our marriage, he began to change. I wasn't working the right job. I wasn't making enough money. I wasn't interested in him sexually. He was worried about my health. He said I wasn't eating right. And then eventually it started to become controlling, where he would control the money. My mindset at that time, I had become accustomed to just being put down and controlled. I completely changed from who I was. I was more reserved and more, I don't know. I remember my mom tells this story where I had come to her in tears, and I said, I think I spent too much. And she asked me, well, what do you mean? What did you buy? And I said, I bought chapstick. And I'm afraid that he'll look at the bank account and he'll be angry. And I will say this, I was never hit. I was never physically abused. But I do believe that I was mentally abused. And sometimes that's worse. I tried to be whatever he wanted me to be. Even back then, I had a lot of health issues. And I think as a woman, you want to be loved. You want someone to take care of you and unconditionally accept you and love you. And I grew accustomed to not having that. So a little over 5 years went by, and I was miserable. But I just thought this was the way it was. And we were living in this small apartment. And one night he sat me down and he says, "You don't make me happy anymore. I'm not happy. I want a divorce." And I'm very embarrassed at what I did. I literally begged him not to do this. I'll do anything. And the reason I'm crying isn't because of him. It's because of how I was back then. And how sad I was. And I asked him, just give me another chance. Let's go to counseling. Let's do something. And he said, okay, 1 month. He gave me 1 month. Of course, eventually we actually both went to the courthouse and filed divorce papers. Both signed off. We didn't have hardly anything. And I was living at the apartment. And a shred of me was hoping that he would come back to me and, sleep in our bed and realize that I was the one for him. But I became a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. And I remember my mom had come over to just kind of cheer me up. And we went to the mall, and then we were going to go to Olive Garden. We walked into the doors of Olive Garden, and I looked ahead, and my mom was talking or something, I can't remember. And I saw Ethan, and he was with a past friend of mine, or actually ours. We had a little group that we were hanging out with. And they were getting ready to be seated, and he was leading her with his hand down the small of her back like he used to with me. And it broke me. Then it infuriated me, and we turned around, went back into the car, and I texted him and I said, how's your lunch going? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm at work. And I said, no, you're not. And I literally lost it. I began beating the car and just screaming and crying. And we went back to Ethan and I's place, and within a few hours I had everything moved out of that apartment, and I left. And for 3 months I was probably at one of the lowest points I've ever been. I felt worthless. I felt unloved. I felt I did something wrong. I felt I will never, ever be the same. And I never was. I became stronger. I have been single for 9 years. And I love it. My heart is in a very good place. Even before I met my ex-husband, and even while we were married, I didn't like myself. I didn't like my own company. I needed someone around all the time. And now I love being alone. I love doing what I want to do and not have someone beside me controlling me or constantly asking me, what are you doing? And all of this stuff. And this is my choice. I choose to be single because I love doing what I want to do and being who I want to be. And I'm not saying that when you're in a relationship, you are a different person, but at that time when I was married, I was a person I did not like. I changed, and I was weak. and I felt I was worthless. Now I feel stronger, happier. I feel great at being single. I do. I love it. And if this helps you in any way, which I hope it does, love yourself first. Be happy with who you are. And though the people that are meant to be in your life will come to you. I love who I am. If you like this video, click that like button. If you are not a miracle and want to be, click that subscribe button. Watch a miracle happen. I will see you guys tomorrow for another movie review. Bye.